Hi, I'm your host, Anand J Sukhadia, and this is the Limitless One Podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds. Our fifth chakra, or the throat chakra, represents our individual declaration to life and the world, stating who we are. Words and vibrations that start in the mind are expressed then through the vocal cords to alchemize the immaterial to the material. Welcome to the Limitless One Podcast. I am your host, Anand J Sukhadia. Today, we are blessed to learn on how to open our throat chakra from a soul that has mastered this energy center through his magical music. In the words of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Matthew Kocel's music is so primal, so rich, and brilliantly soulful, it touches us on a deep level that opens our hearts. Matthew Kocel is a transformative artist and leader in the global sound healing movement. With over 40 years of experience as a performer and a multidisciplinary healing arts practitioner, he has mastered the art of using sound and vibration to facilitate inner healing and personal growth. His unique blend of throat singing, overtone chanting, and natural voice taps into a universal vibration that feels both ancient and new, bringing listeners into deep states of relaxation and inner peace. Through the harmonic frequencies of his voice, Matthew dissolves the boundaries of space and time, allowing his listeners to experience the interconnectedness of all things. Matthew's music has touched the hearts and souls of people from all walks of life, and his impact on their lives is truly transformative. His message of oneness and healing resonates deeply with his listeners, inspiring them to live lives with greater authenticity, compassion, and joy. Matthew Kocel, thank you so much for that beautiful performance that you just created.
Thanks so much, Anand. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about that piece that you just sang for us?
I call that song Valhalla. The name of obviously there's no words, but the title just reflects kind of the feeling that I get from the music. And I feel like most of my songs are carrying some type of archetypal memory, collective memory. And so I just search for titles that reflect that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And, even though you don't use words, there's so much being transmuted. And I feel it, like I could feel through many of your songs, like ancient Egyptians, ancient Indian, I feel, ancient Nordic. There's so many different types of, cultures that you're bringing into this consciousness. And it's so beautiful that, we don't need words. And so much communication is done through nonverbal, abilities.
Exactly. I feel like with this type of music, words would just get in the way. And in the process of creating language, we create separation, and we're classifying things and subdividing. And so music is moving in the opposite direction, going towards a unifying effect.
Yeah.
And
I feel it in my heart. That's for sure. And all throughout my body, it's just this energetic field. Yeah, absolutely. So you consider yourself a cosmic throat singer. What specifically is a cosmic throat singer? And first of all, I love the title, but can you go into detail into what that is?
Well, if you Google that term, it'll show me. So throat singing is a way of bending sound, is the way I look at it. So using the sounds of the vocal cord as they're naturally produced, and shaping the instrument, which is the human body, and particularly the tongue, the lips, the placement of the jaw, and where I'm placing the sound to bend the sound and to amplify specific harmonics or overtones. And a lot of people will ask, what is a harmonic? What's an overtone? The best way I can describe that is if you pluck a single string on a guitar or any stringed instrument, we hear a note. Our brain is recognizing the pitch, and that is based on the number of vibrational waves that are moving off of that movement of the string in space. So the vibrational waves, which we measure in frequency, how often do they show up in space and time, those waves double on themselves and then continue to multiply into infinity. And those multiplications of the fundamental tone are the harmonics or overtones. These are interchangeable terms. And so it's like there's naturally occurring additional notes stacked on top of the fundamental tone. And they're all present in our voice. Everyone has these in their voice already. We're just not listening for them. We haven't been attuned to that, or perhaps as a species, we've forgotten to listen with that much detail to the sounds in our environment and coming from our voices. And so just as you, let's say with the trombone, you change the pitch by sliding the slide, and that changes the shape of the instrument. You're creating a sound with your lips going into the mouthpiece, going through the horn, and then you change the pitch by changing the shape of the instrument. Same with here. I'm creating sound with my voice and then bending it with micro movements of the mouth, lips, and tongue, and jaw, and where I'm placing or intending the sound to vibrate in my vessel here. There is one particular technique. Some people, the Tuvans, call it kagara. I'm not sure what the Tibetan term for it is, and there are many cultures that use this, but that low sound is activating the ventricular folds within the throat, which are additional flaps that we don't normally use that are adjacent to the vocal cords. And so by activating those, I get an additional tones, and harmonics are being produced just from that action of that sound interacting with the vocal cords. And then gives me more texture to shape and undulate the multiple frequencies that come through. Actually, one time I gave a presentation for a high school up here in British Columbia, and I was singing through a microphone, and the music teacher ran my voice through a spectrometer, and he told me afterwards that I was creating 9 tones at one time. He was blown away, and so was I. I wish I would have gotten that on film.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so the cosmic part, I had to think of some type of term to describe what I'm doing, and that was the best I could come up with. 'Cause I'm not a traditional Tibetan throat singer, chanter. I haven't trained with any Tibetans, Tuvans, Mongolians, or any other of these multiple lineages of throat singing and overtone singing from around the world. Mostly it's been self-discovery. But I feel like my intention is to tap into the language of the cosmos. So hence the name Cosmic Throat Singer.
That's so beautiful. And as you were just describing this, I'm just imagining, like the Pythagoras theorem. It's basically that spiral of the cosmos. And, in Hindu traditions, they say that Om was the first sound of the universe. And as Om was played, then all creation happened. I know in other religions, they talk about in the beginning was the word. So when we're creating from that space, yeah, it's just the spiraling of creation. That's what I felt when you were singing, and when I hear your music a lot, because lately I've been listening to it a lot, and it's actually really beautiful, the synchronicities that happen for you to even come on here. So I just wanted to give the audience, I mentioned it to you briefly, but I wanted to talk to the audience a little bit about how I came into your music and then how we connected is, about a year ago, I first started on the meditations with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who also licenses your music. And one specific meditation was the Noble Walk, which is, it's a walking meditation. And I'm standing outside the first day of the tour, the first day or second day of the event. We're outside. It's like sunrise. My feet are in the sand. I see the beautiful blue ocean in Marco Island, and the wind is blowing on me. And I just feel so much love and so much like unity. And then boom, your song comes on, Grace. And I just felt something in my body just change. My heart totally opened up even further. It was almost like a energy center, chakra awakening of sorts. And every time I hear that song, it just gives me chills, and also your other music. So I've been listening to your music for a little bit over a year. And recently I was just in Egypt. I was telling you on our discovery call, and I was listening to him multiple times a day. And like, I was listening to more and more and more. I was listening to Grace, Song of the Ancients, Hope, Vision, Valhalla, and then also Farewell to Atlantis. And the funny thing is, that day I was in Dendera Temple, it was an ancient mystery school. It was a healing center. So I was listening to that song before. And then when I came home, we got back at midnight, and I was listening to this song, and I open up the song on Spotify, and I see the visuals, that some songs have visuals, and I look, and it's like literally the temple that I was just at in Egypt, the Dendera Temple. And that was like the first thing, is like, okay, that's crazy. And I don't remember, right around that time, I added you on Instagram because I was just thinking about your music so much. I wanted to learn more about you. And then later on, a couple of days later, I was kind of ending up my tour, and we were we had a private tour of the Luxor Temple, which is this massive temple complex. And we were lucky enough to have dinner outside overlooking it. And as soon as we got to the dinner, this was like, I was feeling so much love because of this tour, the people that I met, all the downloads that I got from these ancient sites. And boom, I get this DM from you, and you introduce yourself and just thank me for adding you, and talk to me about my business home life, and how would you love to come on the podcast. And it was actually my intention to invite you myself, but you beat me to it. So thank you so much. And this is such a beautiful, the synchronicities that happen. And I think that when these synchronicities continually happen, and they're happening like so much in my life, it just shows me that my life is perfect, and that the universe is unfolding exactly as it should, and that there's nothing to worry about, because everything is going to be, okay, as long as we're following our intuition and speaking in authenticity and using our throat chakra, which we'll get into a lot today. Yeah, Matthew, can you tell me a little bit about your backgrounds? Because I know you didn't start out like this. You started out more so in traditional music and rock music, actually.
Yeah. I was looking for a way to connect as a teenager, and I had a spiritual awakening early on. My crown chakra opened up during a church event, and I didn't have any frame of reference for what happened to me with this energy that I felt, and wasn't able to maintain that vibration. And I wasn't really buying into the dogma that it was being presented to me through my family's religion. So I kind of threw all that away and was essentially spiritually lost at that point. So I had nothing to replace what I was disregarding. And so music was one of the few things that made any sense to me. It made me feel like I could belong, and a sense of purpose. And there was some music that would just come through at special times and really inspire me and help me feel connected to the spiritual realm and to the higher aspects of my being. So, I've been dabbling with different instruments, piano, trumpet. Then I picked up a guitar and just wanted to sing. And that was a hard leap to make. I was the youngest in my family and had been told, that my voice wasn't, my words weren't trustworthy, and I didn't have a good singing voice. But I just felt, I've got to be able to do this. It can't be that hard. And so I started learning songs, and it's a really beautiful communal experience. And then growing a little bit older, everyone wants to know what you're going to do with your life, and all I could think of was I just want to make music. So I went to university for 2 years, studying as a music major, first majoring in guitar and minoring in piano, and then second year I took up bass. And during that time, my second year of university, I was living at home because my father was dying from cancer. And I was commuting to school with one of my classmates and a good friend, and as it turned out, a bandmate as well, my first real rock band. And so Dave was driving us to school, and I was reading the biography of Jimi Hendrix. It's called Voodoo Child of the Aquarian Age. And as I opened up the book and started reading about a song I had never heard before, I didn't notice that Dave had put a tape in the deck, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing Jimmy singing the very words that I'm reading to this song. It was in perfect timing and perfect synchronicity. I got through a few lines before I realized it really hit me what was happening. And of course, goosebumps like crazy. And I just interpreted that as a sign. And in that moment, I took a vow. I said, okay, whatever it takes, I'm going to do this. This is my destiny. So after my father passed away, I actually dropped out of university after my second year and moved to the nearest big city, which in my case was Denver, Colorado, and joined a working rock band. And this is in 1982. In those days, there's venues everywhere you went, from small towns to big cities. There were live music venues where musicians were getting paid to make music, and that was a standard form of entertainment. So you could go on tour and scratch out a meager existence by playing other people's music. And so I joined a working band, and there I was up on stage under the lights and these horrible environments. But I got some, good experience and played with some talented musicians. And after a couple of years, I realized that wasn't taking me where I wanted to go. So I decided to focus on creating my own music and collaborating with one of the musicians that I had had the pleasure and opportunity to play with. And so we worked on our songwriting skills for quite some time and started performing in local venues around Denver. And by making that leap to original music, it really narrowed down the scope of performance opportunities. But, I just knew in my heart this is what I wanted to do. And I would always revert back to that memory of Jimi Hendrix singing to me. So, I just stuck with it. And so this went over and over through different projects that would reach a certain point of proficiency and popularity, and then they would blow up or dissolve. And but I kept going, and Meanwhile, I'm getting more and more starved spiritually and emotionally. I was feeling quite isolated and really wanting to find my connection to source. And again, I didn't have any frame of reference, but that need became so huge. The pain was almost unbearable. And so I got to my lowest point where, I was having some really dark thoughts, and I said, I have to go find my way. I have to find a way to connect. It's out there. I know it. So I went to a bookstore, and I found this book called Inner Power: Secrets from Tibet and the Orient. And when I opened this book up, the first chapter was about the chakras. And so I read through the description of the chakras. I knew this is real because I have felt things there. I felt these qualities there, and it all made sense. And as I went from the base chakra all the way up through the crown chakra, it was all connecting. When they described the crown chakra connecting us to spirit, I knew what had happened to me as a child.
Would you mind, would you mind sharing a little bit about the experience as a child when your crown chakra opens up?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I was with my church youth group, and we went to see a movie that was produced by Billy Graham. And, obviously something geared towards recruiting, teenagers to become Christians through that path of dedicating your life to God through that window, that portal. And, I was just out having a good time with my friends, and I had no intention of doing anything crazy. But after the movie, they turned on the lights and put out the call. Anyone who wants to come dedicate your life to God through Jesus as your Lord and Savior, come down and we'll pray with you. And in that moment, I got zapped with this energy. It came down through the top of my head and engulfed my body. It was almost like electricity, something I'd never felt before. And so I got up and zombie walked down the aisle and did the prayer and the ritual, and they sent me home with a new copy of the New Testament and Psalms, which I already had a Bible at home. I already considered myself at that point Christian, but and so there I was, but I couldn't talk to. I didn't find it within myself to talk to my parents or any adults, certainly not my brothers, about what had happened to me and what I had felt, because there's no one speaking any type of language that remotely resembled what I had just experienced. And no one in church talking about it either, and even in the youth group, there's, there were good people around me, but I just wasn't making that connection. And also, for me, the concept of this book that's been translated multiple times through all these years, being having to accept it as a perfect rendition of the Almighty's word, it didn't quite resonate with me. And also threat of eternal torture, if I slipped up and didn't do things just right or joined the wrong club or whatever, that just, it didn't add up. And I was a very skeptical child, and so it didn't take me long to say, nope, not this. But the feeling was real, and the experience was real. And after discovering what the crown chakra is, and even years after that, it finally dawned on me, okay, that experience, that dedication I made, that was a real dedication. No one could take that from me, I felt from my heart that I am committing to connecting to spirit. And that has been the overriding goal of my life. Of course, there's been distractions and detours, but this is what keeps me going. And it's the purpose behind my music, to help people connect to this great mystery of the eternal consciousness that's creating, maintaining, transforming all that is, all that has been, all that will be. It's in I see it and feel it in everything now. And I know that I'm never alone because it's in me and I'm part of it. And what a beautiful transformation that's been. There's a lot of pain on this path, a lot of pain. And it hasn't been all crystals, rainbows, and unicorns by any means. But I'm so grateful. I look back now from this stage of the journey and see the perfection in all of it. I'm just so grateful.
Yeah. It's like, it's only from that higher perspective can we understand that we needed to go through the pain in order to see what, the exact opposite is. And everything that we experience that we don't like is just understanding that what is not us versus what is us. We have to see both spectrums. Otherwise there's no contrast in any of it. And it's not easy to sign up for this journey. Cause I truly believe that, we make the decision to have a certain experience from whatever perspective, whether it's, we have to fulfill our karmic debts or whatever it is. But we have, it's the game is not fun unless we have to go through these challenges, because then we come out better. Where's the growth if there's no friction, there's no hardship?
Yeah, and I see that also playing out on the macrocosmic level, like for the infinite spirit to grow and to learn of itself, it has to expand into physicality, into the more denser realms. And if there is no resistance to the light of Creator, then we wouldn't have physical form. So just by coming into 3D experience of reality, there is this duality, this yin and yang, this positive, negative, and opposing forces that create this dance that we're all experiencing, we call human life.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. And one of the things I had to really come to understanding of is that it's all a part of oneness and unity in God. So to not judge what we don't like, it's the shadow side of us, but it is us. So, that which we judge or we condemn is actually staring right back at us. So it's so important to kind of like just look at this as a game, and you're a character. Maybe you're the good guy this time, and maybe you're the bad guy next time, right? Exactly. It's how do we know? But it's just like laughing through life and understanding. Yeah, like you made the decision, I made the decision. Okay, I am going to connect deeper and deeper with Source, whatever I believe God to be. And once you make that journey and that decision, then things will unfold. And yes, we're going to have to go through the things we have to go through, but it's, it's just making that commitment, like in anything in life, right? Once you decide you're going to do something, it's going to unfold, and more secrets will be revealed over the time.
Exactly.
Okay. So you talked about the book that kind of opened up yourself, your vision to chakras and everything like that. So can you take it from there?
Yeah. So, the book also taught me about the power of breath and the concept of prana and chi, and a variety of meditations. And I was just eating up everything in this book. Well, within a year of finding that and starting these practices and just trying them out, I was loving all of it. And my girlfriend at that time took me to a metaphysical store, which I had never set foot in. And so we walk in through the door of this strange little shop, and I hear this sound, which is really loud, this wall of sound. And it sounds kind of like, multiplied many times over. And I asked the woman behind the counter, what are we listening to? She says, it's Tibetan monks. Bing. And so I'm like, what? Inner power secrets from Tibet and the Orient. I'm like, I'm into this, and I didn't even know it. And so, the sound shook me up. In one aspect, it was very attractive to me, but I didn't know whether to like lie down in between the speakers or run out of the store. But I stayed, and I bought the tape. This was late 80s, so we had cassette tapes in those days, and bought the tape and took it home and started listening and meditating to it. and also trying to mimic their sound. I didn't know what a mantra was yet, and I had no idea what the vocal technique was, but I wanted it. And I was still, bass player, singer, rock bands. My bands were getting better, I'm thinking still going down that path, but this strange musical, mystical sound, almost disturbing sound, was really attracting me. So that was in my field, and continued on my path in music, and the bands, like I said, were getting better. Music was getting better. There were a couple of little recording opportunities, not with record labels by any means, but yes, more opportunities for deeper levels of creation. And I was yearning, though, for a deeper connection to spirit still, and starting to reassess my goals as a musician. Did I really want to be on the road for the rest of my life, even if it was playing in those glamorous arenas and all that? And so, my soul was, again, and my heart were yearning for this more nurturing of the spirit, and maybe a more healthy lifestyle as well. So in 1994, I went camping with my girlfriend at that time, and we climbed a mountain in South Park, Colorado, the real South Park. It's a vast, high altitude mountain valley. Very interesting place. Lots of energetic vortexes around there that are kind of off the map. Anyway, we climbed this mountain that had no trails, and got to the top, and I said, I wonder if there's any crystals around here. And at that moment I turned my head, and here was this beautiful quartz crystal shining in the sunlight. And I picked that up, and life changed. I was holding on to it as I drove back to Denver, and just really wanting to change in my life. My day job at that time, I was a manager of a high dollar, big fancy burlesque club. And I'd been there for 5 years, and I felt like it's time to go. This is going to kill me if I stay, and I passed whatever karmic tests I needed to go through this. Well, so I'm holding on to the crystals saying, I got to get out of there. I can't do it anymore. Showed up for work next day, and my boss was waiting outside the club with my final check in his hand, and he was laying me off because he couldn't afford to pay my salary anymore. He eventually went out of business or had to sell the club. So now my band at that time, we were scheduled to go into the studio that night and spend a week recording our demo, which I still love to listen to. I love the music, love those guys. But we broke up, the band broke up 2 months later. So within a short time after finding this crystal on the mountaintop in South Park, the ground fell away underneath my feet. And I was so heartbroken from that band breakup that I just knew that I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I put my bass aside, stopped playing, and eventually found my way into the healing arts. I had been dipping my toe in the water and trying some introductory classes in shiatsu and massage and reading about Reiki. I was very intrigued with energy transmission of, healing energy. And so I dove in all the way and turned my back on music, and I was on the healing path. And with the intention that this is part of my spiritual quest and my spiritual mission. My goal was to heal the planet through one body at a time. And I was already confident in my skills, my manual skills with my hands. And to me, that was just a cover to run energy and connect with source and bring that through. And in the first year of my practice, I got the inspiration to begin holding guided meditation circles in my home. Now, I had been exploring meditation along with the healing arts. To me, it was all one continuum. And I was taking all the meditation courses and that I could get my hands on, and attending all these guided meditation processes, awakening the light body, flower of life. And so my own meditation circle started out slow. First it was just me and one friend, and next time he didn't even show up, and it was just me sitting there with a candle and crystals in the middle of my living room. But I held the intention and just let everyone I knew that I was doing this, and people started to come. And we were having pretty profound experiences right off the bat. It was kind of surprising how deep we could go and how much connection we could make. Eventually, I don't know, within the year, I guess, I felt like as the inspiration and the sense of what to say was coming through, that English language wasn't enough for me anymore. And so, not being able to find words for what I was experiencing, I started to ohm. And immediately people tell me how they felt the energy move through them on the sound of my voice and move around them and through them. So that got my attention, and I had been experimenting with mantras at this point, and overtones, and hearing some of the richness of and depth of sound in the voice that I never would have noticed, belting out tunes into a microphone with a big, rock band behind me. So I explored that more and brought more of it into the meditations. I still couldn't do that deep Tibetan sound, though. Then I went to a workshop by this gentleman named Jonathan Goldman, who is from Boulder, Colorado, and has written many books on sound healing, written all these, released several albums. And he didn't teach that technique over this weekend, but he demonstrated it once. He did one deep ohm, and he said, some people are going to get this after being around other people who do it. And in that moment, I thought, that's me. It has to be me. And the next day, it came through. So I called up Jonathan Goldman's phone number. It was his office, got a voicemail, and I left a big, long ooh on his voicemail. I said, thanks, Jonathan. It worked. I got the deep voice. Hung up. And boy, I was on fire at that point. And so that's how music snuck back into my life. And the meditation became the music. The prayer became the music. The healing became the music. I was, just gradually increasing my use of the sound and melody. And I would bring sound into my one-on-one healing sessions with my massage and Reiki clients. And more and more sound and toning in the meditations. And eventually I started to take it outside of my living room and try it on new audiences, and it worked there. And just kept, every time I went through a new door, it was very well received. And in 2008, I decided, okay, this is undeniable, and it's time for me to record an album and make it official, get a website. And that's when I made that leap to, and that became my main point of dharma, if you will. I still do the hands-on work and keep in touch with that part of my healing practice. But for me, music is the way to really make the biggest impact and the quickest way to reach multitudes of people, to give them a direct experience of the oneness of all things, and that they are part of this whole, and we all belong here, and we are all welcome and loved, and it's all sacred.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, the music that you produce. And I know just from the community of Dr. Joe people, I was just in Egypt, and I would say on this tour group, there was 25% of the people have done these kinds of things. So all the synchronicities, and everyone I talked to was like, oh my goodness, I love his music. I listen to it. Some guy's like, oh yeah, I do mushrooms and I listen to Matthew's music. To each their own. Right? But can you tell us a little bit of the purpose of like getting into those lower guttural sounds and how that affects the vibration of the person singing and then also the person who is listening?
Yeah, well, the way I see it, we exist in an infinite spectrum of vibration. We now know that there are frequencies that we can't hear and we cannot see. And those frequency ranges were already in place before we were able to see them with our fancy technology. So I believe that there's no beginning and end to the range of frequency spectrum that we are indeed existing within. So if we can tap into more of that frequency with our own voice, I think it just gives us more direct line to experience more of what we are. I feel the vibrations in my body. It's coming from the throat, but I feel it resonate down through to my pelvic floor and definitely into my head. It's vibrating my pineal and pituitary gland. One of these days, those suckers are going to pop open and give me that divine mystical experience that everyone wants. But the overtones, harmonics are in divine proportion. I'm not a left brain dominant numbers person, but I can look at the numbers and the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean ratio and the scale of the harmonics. It all makes sense. And so I believe this sound is reflecting the structure of the universe, how matter takes form. And we're living in a world filled with incoherent frequencies. First, from the collective anxiety induced by the destruction we've incurred and are inflicting upon the biosphere that we live within. Our bodies are part of this earth, and here we are, ravaging forests and water and the air, and there's no way that we cannot feel this in our bodies, and it will have an effect on how we feel. Then there's the technology. We started out with radio and electronic devices and went to television frequencies in the air. And now we have, of course, cell phones and Wi-Fi. Now they're putting the Wi-Fi in the sky. What could go wrong? Wi-Fi transmitters in the ionosphere and the magnetosphere, the very electromagnetic field of the Earth that protects us from radiation from outer space, and they're putting Wi-Fi up there. So if we can, within this soup of incoherent frequencies, if we can bring in coherence through vibration, then I know it helps me. And I see it helping people firsthand in my live events. And of course, I get messages from people around the world who are feeling that relief and that sense of connection just by listening to the recordings as well. So I'm delighted to know that that frequency and the intention is translating through the recordings. That is the answer to my prayers. So that's the main effect, is like bringing coherence into a field of incoherence. And we know now from the heart math research and other research that's happening that the positive emotions of love, gratitude, etc., are stronger and than the incoherent frequencies of the lower emotions, the anger, the fear, anxiety, these things. So I think I do not underestimate the power of getting a small group together and moving into that space together. And when I play the music, there's at least one person to share it with in person, the effect is magnified exponentially. As the Great Master said, where two or more are gathered, I am there. And that is so real. I could have the most stressful day ever and sit down on my cushion with a small group of people or a large audience. And once I get to be in that mode, everything is good, everything is right. There's no place that I'd rather be, and nothing that I would rather do than be in that. And so as I begin to play the music, it brings me deeper into this sense of gratitude and rapture and connection. So it deepens my field of coherence, which helps everyone else who's present and listening to go into their field of coherence. So it all magnifies so quickly, and within seconds, everyone's having a journey.
It's so beautiful, you know, and I agree with you. It's like a battle of coherence. Like there's coherence distortion, and then there's actual coherence that brings us back into our heart, into our soul. So yeah, you talk about what they're doing in the sky and the ionosphere. Also, music itself, right? Like before, years ago, it was 432 hertz all music, and that kind of frequencies, they really move through your body in a very like beautiful way, 528 hertz as well. And then they changed the musical scale to, I think, 440, is it? And that's also very, very distorted. So like everything, you know, you could call it a conspiracy or whatever, but it's so much of reality has been distorted to keep us away from that mind, body, heart coherence. And I think it's really important that, yeah, the people that realize you have to go inwards. And then when you go inwards, come to a place in your life where then you can share it with others and bring groups together, that Maharishi effect you were talking about. That's when massive waves of consciousness start getting created, right? It's like a ripple effect. It grows exponentially when we kind of come together in this state of consciousness. And I'll just give you like a little example of, you know, when I listened to guttural music like live for the first time, I was in Bodh Gaya, which is in India, and it's the little town where they have this massive complex, this temple complex where the Buddha reached enlightenment. So his Bodhi tree is over there. And then they have all these stupas and, you know, temples. And in this one little area, I think it's the tallest temple that they have there, there's like 12 monks, and they're nonstop 24 hours a day. They're doing this guttural chanting, and they take shifts and they switch out. But like throughout the entire time you're there, they're just keeping the vibration and the harmonics going in this place. And when you're inside this temple complex, you just feel bliss. There is nothing that you're thinking about that's not in the present moment. You're looking at like, you know, like little dogs like walk, and you're seeing like these monks meditating. It's just the most beautiful place. And, you know, that's like one beautiful example, but we can create that in our own communities. And what you're doing, bringing people together, it's so important. And I'm big into community as well. We do crystal bowl sound baths and, you know, meditations and breath work and all these kinds of things at my wellness center here in Jersey City. And, you know, I think that it's becoming more and more prevalent in every city that I go to. I'm seeing that these things are popping up.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad you mentioned the frequencies. Some people might not like what I had to say about it. I mean, because, well, for one, I just have to say that the numbers all add up and it makes sense. The 432 hertz and the 528 and all that. However, hertz. What are hertz? We measure, there's a measurement of how many sound waves move through space and a measurement of time. Cycles per second. Okay, so let's use our critical thinking here now. What is time? What is a second? And is a second the same on Pluto as it is on Earth, or in the center of the sun, or on the event horizon of a black hole, or in Alpha Centauri? Is a second the same? You know, relativity tells us that it's going to be different. It's based on our human experience. So I question if it's the only solution. And I believe in my experience and the reflection I get from a lot of people is that there's certain aspects of my music that takes people out of time. And I remember I met Tom Kenyon, who was a real pioneer of sound healing in the Western world met him in 2001. And I remember one of the things he said was that true healing takes place outside of time and space. And I didn't quite grasp that, but now, we have Dr. Joe showing us that true healing takes place in the quantum field, where all the Newtonian rules break down and there is no time and space. So that's where the true healing happens. Although, the physical body is an entry point into the infinite. I was told in a dream one time where I was getting this massive download, lots of words coming at me, and then right before I woke up, he said, find the entry point. And that was all I could remember. But now I realize the entry point is all around us in every moment and every pore and every breath. That's everywhere in every atom. Yeah. And to be honest, true confessions, my harmonium is not tuned to 432. It's I measured it. It's about 442, the A. And just so people who aren't familiar with the details, we're talking about the middle A in the scale. That's what the A440. That's the standard concert pitch. And so in India, where harmonium is made, traditionally they're just tuned by ear. And so it sounds about right, and they pump it out, and there's another harmonium, and that's what I bought. And my shruti as well. It's not tuned exactly. And I've been on websites that sell crystal bowls, and some are exact concert pitch, so they say, and some are supposed to be exact 432 pitch. But I've got out my tuner and played their samples, and they're not exactly.
Definitely not, especially if you're buying it for $30, right?
Right. It's it's great marketing. But also I want to say, when I got my first crystal singing bowl, it was tuned to the note D. And I would play it for a room full of people, and everyone would feel it in a different part of their body. And often people would say, or every so often someone would come and say, what chakra is that bowl? And my response would be, well, this is a magic bowl, and I've programmed it to go exactly where it's needed. It's not confined to one chakra or another, which is another subject, the subject of, okay, base chakra, C, sacral chakra, D, on and up. Okay, so the chakras, this comes from ancient wisdom. The Vedas, the Vedic scriptures bring us through educate us about the chakras. This way predates Western music and the Western scales. And, if the Vedas came out of India, and Indian music, their scales are very different from the Western music. And there are more notes. They have notes in between our notes in the West. So how could it be that, the chakras are tuned to the Western concert pitch, or maybe even, just the Western notes, whether they're based in 432 or not? I question that as well. And it doesn't mean that if someone gets a chakra set of bowls, that it's not working. Because if they believe that it is, of course, that intention is going to be entrained on the frequency of the bowls. And if the people who are receiving it also believe that, who am I to say that it doesn't work? But I don't believe that it is confined to the numbers. And I just can't really spend my time crunching the numbers when I'd rather just go into that bliss of making music. And, also let's say the shamans in the jungle right now singing ikaros to the people they're giving plant medicine to. I don't think they're worried about what frequency, their A is. Or even the monks, standing out by the stupas, I don't think they're worried about that. It's the intention. And I think, it's a trap to get caught up in the linear reductionism with sound. Not that there isn't value in it, because there's research into what frequencies break up cancer cells, for example. That's great. I'm not worried about that when I'm singing for a client who's on my table, I'm trusting that in this ocean of frequencies that are coming through me, something is going to benefit them. And I've never had anything happen that would show me otherwise. And in groups too. I'm not conducting what everyone's going to feel, what kind of journey they're going to have, where they're going to feel it in their body, or what visions they have. I'm just minding my own grounding, connection to the earth, connection to the heart, and connection to source, and letting them be in my awareness at the same time while I'm focusing also on creating the music, and miracles happen.
Yeah, definitely. I just wrote it down. The frequency of love has a very wide range, right? So it doesn't matter about the numbers.
Yeah.
When you're speaking with love, you're speaking with intention, it's going to resonate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I wanted to get into specifically the throat chakra, right? Because you do a lot of work through the throat chakra, but I want to talk about the significance of it, and especially in a time now that we live in, why is it so important for us to be able to open up our throat chakra and not have the blockages, say in the past, of shutting down our voice or not speaking in our truth?
Yeah. So, yeah, many of us were told at a young age that what we had to say is not important or not believed, or we were told that we did not have a good singing voice, to be quiet, or we were just not meant to be heard. And so we started putting on protection to protect ourselves here. And that has inhibited how we express ourselves, not just with our words, not just with singing, but in how we express our doing in the world and our beingness in the world. And it's really important that we're able to speak our truth and to live from our truth, regardless of what reactions there may be. Of course, we want to live harmoniously with our neighbors and do no harm in the world, ultimately, and to be of benefit to life. But it's also, we have to be true to ourselves. And for me, I didn't feel heard or acknowledged to suit my inherent needs as a child and as an adolescent. And so I shut down, and I was unable to, I became unable to speak my truth when I needed to, to my family, and, became hard in intimate relationships to, really speak my needs and to say what I was really feeling. So by getting out and singing, that was a step forward in my healing of that. And then when I made the choice to begin leading guided meditations, who was I to make that choice? I'm no monk, no guru, and, just this guy who came from a kind of a, so I would say a shady background. And here I am leading guided meditations, but it was what was in my heart. And I just knew inside me that I had something to share, this connection that I felt, and I trusted that it would come through me. So it was really a gift that people came and received that, even before I started toning and oming. Like you said, when you're speaking from the heart, even just words can transmit, and that happened. So opening up the throat chakra is very important. We're in a climate now in society where many people want to shut us down if we say the wrong things that are not to their in line with their dogma. There's all this backlash going back and forth from different sides, and it's complicated. What a complicated world we're in, with all the transitions and roles and norms and societal expectations. But we all still need each other. And even the people that we might disagree with, very strongly on political matters or societal matters, we still need each other. And we need to be able to communicate to each other, to hear each other out, and have conversations rather than yelling at each other through the digital void or other ways, of violent confrontations. We need to be able to listen and speak our truth and hear another's truth. So opening the throat chakra can certainly help with that. When I teach vocal activation, I call it, which is a throat singing and overtone singing class and lessons, I see that, people come in afraid to sing or afraid to chant in front of strangers, and some of them are afraid to speak in public or in groups. And we start to play with the voice and expand beyond what we ever heard coming from the voice. And it frees people up. So, and I've seen people who have just taken a one-day workshop and gone on and changed their life and made, changes in even in their career path. Because things started to move here again. And as they continue to work with the voice, they get some movement, then the free flow of energy from the lower centers to the upper centers, good things happen there, and we can experience more growth.
Yeah, you explained it so beautifully. And, when we're speaking from our authentic self and in our truth, it's unlocking a superpower, right? So we don't all need to be musicians, but as long as we are speaking from our hearts, from our souls, and what you said is so very important. Yeah, it's okay to disagree with people, but to hear them out is so important, not only for them because they want to be heard, otherwise we're shutting down their thought, but also for our own karma and for our own self. Like, who are we to judge what other people think? Everybody wants to express themselves in the way I truly believe that they're looking to reach God at some point, whether it's consciously, subconsciously, even if they don't believe in God, they're trying to live their best possible life. So if they think that this is some kind of vision or value that they have, then let them speak it and let the best ideas win in society. But when we start shutting down people's voices, yeah, there's an inherent fear. Oh, should I say this? Like, I've definitely caught myself from posting something on Instagram.
Me too.
No doubt about it. After the first 100 times, I got shadow banned and stuff, right? Or I get some nasty emails, when I talk about freedom of speech and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, everybody's trying to express themselves in whichever way they know how. And I think that the only way that we can kind of cope is, first of all, look at all this chaos as just an illusion of, this 3D reality, right? And just to have fun with it and dance through it. And secondly, not be afraid to be who we are and say our truth and declare it into the universe, because the world needs people that have integrity and have values to speak their truth these days, especially.
Yeah, and also, if our own belief systems can't withstand the, being in the presence of someone or, other person's words or beliefs that are not, perceived to be in alignment with that, then that's pretty weak. Mm-hmm. And we need to look at ourselves and okay, where am I not being authentic? Do I have feet made of clay? Because, if I don't have that foundation, if I'm not strong in my own foundation, then I'm not going to be able to withstand that. And I'll have to shut out anything that doesn't agree with me. So, yeah, we need to be really check ourselves and see where we're really at.
Yeah. Are there anything advice that you can give to people who do maybe have a little bit of that challenge to really speak their truth? Is there any tips that you can give them on how to really start opening up their throat chakra, whether it's simple oming or anything else?
Absolutely. Om, and even just humming with the lips gently closed. Because a lot of people are afraid to even om out loud, but you can be by yourself and, sometimes plug your ears even and just go take a deep breath and feel the vibration move in your throat, in your head, and your body, and feel it just light up your cells. That has been proven to be therapeutic on a physical level and I believe an emotional and mental level as well. So just start making some sound, and with the intention to gift yourself some nurturing energy. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, I think that oming or even mming, how do you say that? Mming. With your fingers in your ears, and then allowing that hum to travel through your entire body, and just visualize it moving through. I told you a little bit briefly about my experience inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Khufu in Egypt recently, and inside the sarcophagus. This is a place where very amazing people traveled through. You had like Jesus was there at some point, learning there. Leonardo da Vinci was there, laying inside the chamber. Even people like warmongers like Alexander the Great and Napoleon. And shortly after these people went in there, Napoleon and Alexander the Great, their empires kind of crumbled, because if you don't go in with the right frequency and the right consciousness, then things can start falling apart. But when I went in there, it was such a beautiful experience. I got to lay down inside this thing for a few minutes. And if anyone hasn't seen what the Great Pyramid looks like, the King's Chamber, specifically inside the sarcophagus, there's many YouTube videos on it. I'll try to post something on this link right here. But even just a simple, it's this reverberation, it's like kind of putting your fingers in your ears, but times that by like 10 million. And you're just hearing this reverberation of the sound moving all around you, like you're swimming in this like whirlpool, and it's going like in the entire chamber, which is a small chamber, it's like 15 by 15, and you could hear it inside the entire pyramid, even people down like all the way on the bottom. It is incredible to have that experience and to have that kind of activation. I was mentioning to you, I had a full Kundalini activation when I was in there, when I was doing my oming. And, we could get to these states. We don't all have to go to the King's Chamber, but this was a very, very powerful experience that I had just from doing a simple oming.
That's fantastic. I hope I get to do that sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I think you would love the resonance and the harmonics in actually all of the pyramids. They're attuned to different frequencies, and they're just so perfect. The Queen's Chamber, the King's Chamber, the Khafre Pyramid has a chamber that has, they say the Ark of the Covenant was housed there at some point. But when you sing in there, we were singing very low, but you can feel the reverberation. And apparently it's tuned to 432, but you'll have to bring your measuring instrument in there just to make sure. But it's the ancients taught us so much about harmonics and frequencies, and they knew something very, very long ago. So we should really start looking into that and the connection between the music, the geometry, how the cosmos was created. It's all interrelated, even just in nature. When you look at that Fibonacci sequence, it's everywhere that we look. Even I was just hanging out with my dog just earlier today, and he's sitting in a little Fibonacci sequence. His head is by his butt, and he's in a little circle. And that's how when fetuses are in they're doing the same thing. It's just that's what creation is. It's just opening up from itself.
Yeah, this fractal continuing to unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching gears a little bit. How did you get started working with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and what was the story behind that?
Well, I was in the middle of lockdowns up here in Canada. So I have to say the lockdowns really showed me what Dr. Joe refers to as the gap. And the gap is where you think you are and where you appear to be and where you're really at. So I had been touring in 2019. I played in Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Austin, Texas. This was in the middle of lockdowns. And one thing I learned from lockdowns is what Dr. Joe calls the gap. And the gap is where you appear to be and where you think you are versus where you really are. And so I had been touring quite a bit, for me anyway. For example, in 2019, I played, I live in British Columbia, and I played all around my province here in Canada. I'd also played in Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Texas, New York, Connecticut, France, and Belgium. And I was looking at 2020 thinking, okay, European tour, coast to coast tour, it's happening, it's on. And I had, I always receive a blessing or infusion of energy when I get to share my music with groups of people. And in that process of doing that consistently, I had let my own cultivation and maintenance practices atrophy. So I wasn't being consistent with my own meditation and breathwork practices. I have all these tools that I've acquired through years on this path, and I wasn't really being mindful and disciplined with it. So all of a sudden, boom, 1 week I'm on Vancouver Island playing these wonderful events and teaching a workshop, and then the next week everything stops. And then I had to continue stopping and being isolated. And I, started to take a bit of a nosedive, energetically, emotionally, and I was not prepared because of my gap. And I started eventually attempting to do live stream events, concerts by live stream, and that was a massive struggle. And I don't like, I'm one of those people you'd call a technophobe, maybe. It's not my nature to dig into the computer and figure out how all these things work. But so I was trying to do live streams on Zoom, and at first the sound was terrible. And, it was blowing up in my face. And I'm getting more and more frustrated and just feeling really despondent. So eventually that worked itself out. Lots of research and lots of frustration, and started getting good sound and everything. But after, I think it was in late 2021, late 2021, just out of the blue, I got an email from one of Dr. Joe's people, and just said, would you be interested in letting Dr. Joe Dispenza license some of your music for his guided meditations? Well, okay.
Did you know of Dr. Joe before that?
I actually met him when he came to Vancouver, I think in 2006, maybe. A friend of mine was promoting him here, and I had not heard of him. Well, actually, I'd seen the movie What the Bleep, but I wasn't following him. But I met him just real briefly. Hi, Dr. Joe, this is Matthew, Dr. Joe. Hi, nice to meet you. We had to go. So we met, and but I had been listening to some of his books on Audible. But again, it was like I'd listen to little bits, or a chapter or two. I'm like, yeah, I know that, and I, reading some of his books or excerpts from his books and watching some interviews. Yeah, I know that, got that, okay. But then, after what I experienced during lockdowns, I realized, maybe I don't have this down so perfectly. It was humbling. And so I got, I already had actually the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, on Audible. So I said, well, I better, give this some more attention, especially after I met him via Zoom and he starts using my music. I'm like, well, okay, universe, hello. So I got into the book, and it's been amazing in helping me to make these changes in myself and to learn to discipline myself and be mindful of taking care of my practices. And I'm not perfected yet. But I'm working on it, and it's been an incredible honor to have Dr. Joe using my music with his guided meditations, for his healing groups, and that it's being played at his live retreats around the world. I could not have asked for a more perfect alignment of demographic to share my music with. And so it's the ultimate silver platter for my music. So people are having peak experiences with my music as the soundtrack. or having life-changing healings with my music as a soundtrack. Thank you, Creator. Thank you, life.
What a blessing. And yeah, the blessings that you bestowed on thousands of people, including myself, in your music. I mean, his organization's run like first class. The people are so incredible, and he has access to any musician that he could want to work with. And the fact that he chose yours, there's something special about your music, and it deeply touches me. I think about it all the time. I listen to it all the time, and I really believe that after this podcast, more and more people will start learning about you, and really getting the word out even more. But yeah, it's just been such a blessing to have you on. Now, Matthew, what is like the most mystical experience that you've had in your life, other than the crown chakra opening?
There's been quite a few, but the first one that comes to mind, and this did involve psilocybin, so just to be upfront.
Yeah.
But there's a place in Colorado where my friend, one of my dear friends and former bandmates, discovered off trail, about an hour and a half southwest from Denver, where the rocks, we found this clearing where there's on one side of a clearing, which is halfway up this rock outcropping, the rocks are naturally formed like ocean animals. There's a whole wall of this cliff face that is shaped like fish and sharks and whales and porpoises, and a big turtle at the top looking over it all. And I've done a lot of solo camping there, and gone up there with friends and had ceremony, and with and without any plant medicines, and had always had incredible experiences there. And it's, in a perfect world, my ashes would be left there when I leave this body. But this one particular day, I was up there with 3 friends, and we ate some beautiful mushrooms. And the first thing that I noticed is that my vision became very clear, like eagle-eye vision. I could see the detail in the tree bark and in the rocks and in everything. And, I'm not so young anymore, and my vision is not where it used to be. But on that day, all of a sudden, it's got crystal clear. And as that happened, I began to notice that I could feel the consciousness of all these elements: the rocks, the trees, the plants, the birds, the sky itself, the clouds. I realized, it wasn't the realism, it was the feeling that it's all alive and it's all part of me. And so I went up and found this little perch, and I said, I'm going to watch the clouds for a little while. And as I did, as I reclined, I looked up, here's this clouds, they're undulating, all of a sudden it just opened up like this funnel or a tunnel in the clouds. And I could see feminine silhouette faces on either side going into it. And all of a sudden, like a flower of life or some other sacred geometry form comes down from that tunnel and touches me. And one of our group was off exploring, wanting us to go look at this beautiful rock that he found. And my other 2 friends, they saw me just in awe of the sky. So they laid down and looked up. And then I saw that tunnel turn towards my friend on the left, and it sent a pulse to him. And I didn't say anything, but as soon as the pulse came, he said, "Whoa." Then it turned to our other friend and did it to him. He goes, "Oh." And it just kept moving back and forth to us, sending us these pulsations of sacred geometry form. It was alive. It was interacting with us. Meanwhile, Dan's over here across the way saying, "Hey, come over here and check out this boulder." We're like, "No, we've already got one." And he kept persisting. We're like, "No." And he finally comes over and looks at us. And we're all sitting, laying back, looking at the sky in awe. And he looks up, and the tunnel turns to him and sends him a pulse. He goes, "Whoa!" And then it does it again. "Whoa!" And we all start laughing and kind of broke the spell. and ended up going around and, enjoying the nature at that point. And the next day, I remembered that about 6 years or so prior, I had dreamed that experience in a non-medicine sleeping dream. And in that dream, I remember there was this circular phenomenon in the sky that was undulating, and I realized that I was interacting with it consciously, and it was changing with my intention. And there was a small group of people with me, and one of them was making vocalizations as they saw what was happening, and that person in the dream was in the same proximity to me as our friend who joined us last and experienced it was in waking life. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, wow, I just got goosebumps. I tell you, I mean, like psychedelics are a gateway, responsible use, and obviously looking at them as medicines, doing them in proper ceremonial, aspects. Same thing with me. Like I has ayahuasca many times, and there was one time I was in Sedona sitting outside. It was pretty much after a trip, not a trip, it was an experience. And we were sitting on a couch, fireplace, and in the distance we saw the sky just open. It was me, my friend, and my ex-girlfriend on my right side. Sky just opens up like a vagina almost. And this blue light comes out and it just stands there. And then it zips across the sky, stops on a dime, and then just slowly descends the mountain. It was definitely a UFO, and it was just so neon blue. And what's crazy is that my friend, we were having lunch earlier that day, and nobody ever says this in conversation, but he's like, I think we're going to see a UFO tonight. And we ended up seeing one.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I tell you, gotta love psychedelics.
Yeah. Yeah, the mushrooms, might be the first life form that terraformed the earth. Certainly, we know that it's an ancient form of consciousness. And, what a gift.
Absolutely. And that mycelium complex is basically communicating everything that's ever happened here on Earth. The knowledge of all that decomposed matter just goes into it. It's like a fiber optic system that we can't even imagine how powerful it is.
And when you look at the cellular, the structure of the mycelium web under the ground, it looks very similar to the neuron web of the brain and the web of stars in the universe and the galaxies and everything.
Yeah, that's just a coincidence though, right?
Right.
Nothing to make of it. We're crazy.
Nothing connected here.
Yeah, nothing. So, Matthew, why do you think you came here to Earth as Matthew Kocel, and what did you want to experience?
Well, that's a really good question. We come into this life, most of us completely forgetting who we are and what we are, and to step into the mystery and begin that process of remembering. It's like the greatest treasure hunt in the universe, to come in, have your memory slate wiped clean, and be put in a situation where there's no or little reinforcement of the interconnection of everything and the truth of our being, and to find that. And so I'm convinced at this point that my purpose for taking on this life form is to make this, or to share the experience of that interconnection of all things and the fractal nature of our existence and the entanglement of our existence, how everything is connected and interacting at every level of the universe, and to experience and learn love in human form, to love all of this from this perspective as a human being, this little point of the infinite consciousness, like a nerve ending coming out from the great mass of consciousness, coming into 3D realm to experience a body, life and death, gain and loss, all the emotions, all the feelings, all of it, and to find a way to love within all of that experience. I think that's the purpose.
So beautiful. And what does God or spirituality mean to you in your life?
Yeah, to me, God is that source from which we all come, from which everything comes. And we can try to define it. We can give it a form or a personality that we assign to it, and it will let us interact with it in that way. We can have any deity that we choose to interact with. Yet it's beyond that. In Taoist philosophy, they call it the Wu Qi. This is the pure consciousness before even yin and yang. Before the yin-yang, positive and negative, male, female, the duality is formed, there's just the absolute. And I believe in Hinduism, it might be referred to as the Godhead. It's beyond the triumvirate of, Vishnu,
Brahma
Vishnu,
and
Shiva. Yeah. It's before that, that absolute source. And it's also what is creating our atoms and the subatomic manifestations in every moment. So to me, God is a verb as much as it is a thing. It's happening. This is happening. This universe, all these atoms are appearing and disappearing, and the subatomic particles are appearing and disappearing in every moment. So this God is becoming this realm all the time because it wants to, I guess. Or maybe that's just what it does. Maybe that's just what it is. That's what life is awareness becoming and expanding from the most subtle possible realm into the densest realm and expanding from there as well. Always expanding, always growing, always reproducing, always repurposing. We know that energy does not die, it changes form. So the atoms, our bodies, all of this around us is all recycled stardust. And it's also sound. It's this vibration, moving, expressing, consciousness expressing its form. And that's why I say that sound is the creation threshold point where mind becomes matter, thought becomes form, the word becomes flesh. This is what sound is when we interact with it with that awareness.
Wow, what a way to bring this conversation, this sacred conversation, all together. Thank you so much. How can we learn more about you?
My current website is omshaman.com. I'm going to be transitioning that to matthewkocel.com. And I'm on most of the social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can just enter my name, 2 T's in Matthew. I'm not on Twitter currently. I just found that, I don't know, decided to get out.
It's a landmine in there.
Yeah, it wasn't doing anything for me. So, I don't have any use for this. So, I got out. But I'm also on my music is on the streaming services. But when people get on my email list, I do, it's the best way to stay in touch. And you can do that through my websites. And I send things that aren't going to be put on the streaming services. So maybe some live recordings or videos that aren't being shared, or things that I will share with people who are communicating with me or allowing me to communicate with them first before I put them out to the general public. And I also forgot to mention, I have a new band.
Nice.
Yeah. How did I... This got so caught up in this brilliant, wonderful conversation, and thank you for all that. Yeah, I have a new band, and I never thought I'd be in a band again, but here it is. It was too good to pass up. We're called Om Yatra. And Om spelled A-U-M, and Yatra, Y-A-T-R-A. So Om, of course, is the cosmic sound, the sound of creation. Yatra, journey of bliss in Sanskrit. and we are 7 members. Besides myself, we have a classical soprano who also plays keyboards, and she's wonderful. We have an Indian sitarist and vocalist who is just a master of his instrument and just a beautiful human being and wonderful voice. Oh my gosh. The producer and engineer of my last 2 albums, Mark Fenster, who is a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist. And we have a percussionist and a guitarist who, all these people are all-star. The guitarist has played on and produced multiple platinum albums. Anthony Anderson. I guess I should name everyone. Our soprano is Chloe Hurst. Our percussionist, Ron Stelting. Sitarist, vocalist, Sharanjit Singh Mand. And Mark Fenster. Oh, and our 7th member is our sound engineer, who is coming on as a full partner, and he's with us at all of our rehearsals and recording us as we rehearse, and he'll be our live sound technician as well. Stefan, I'm forgetting your last name.
We'll put it in the show notes. Just send it to me afterwards.
Yeah. So we've had our premiere show last February, it was. And we're going to do our album release concert June 3rd in Vancouver.
Awesome.
A small venue, it'll hold about 70, maybe 80 people max. But I'm really excited about it. After the first performance, some of the people in our audience were comparing us to a new age version of Pink Floyd.
I love it.
Yeah, what a gift. I've struggled for decades now to classify my music, and when people ask me, what do you sound like? But there it was, gifted to us after our first performance, a new age Pink Floyd. There we are.
Amazing.
Om Yatra.
It's all come full circle. And you're playing the harmonium and singing, I'm assuming?
Yeah, and I'll be wielding all my other instruments. I call my instruments that I use my weapons of mass ascension. So they're all at the ready. Although I never say that term at the airport.
Definitely not. or on phones, because everything's tracked these days. You just got to do it in person.
Yeah. Right. I am saying it on Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. That's so funny. So Om Yatra. So Om is the name of my business, Om Life, and Anand means bliss. So Yatra, journey to bliss. So beautiful synchronicities all around.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah. And is it going to be on Spotify when you guys start the album?
Yeah. When we release the album, I'm going to lobby for us to release it one song at a time to the streaming services, because that's just the smarter way to release music in this market. Mm-hmm. And if you put it all out at once, then it's all out. But if you release single songs every other month or monthly, then it gives you an opportunity to promote each one and to be top of mind and to get the word out consistently. And so.
Absolutely. My friend who I interviewed actually just a couple of days ago about our trip to Egypt, Brandt, he did the same strategy. He launched one song at a time, gave it a couple of months in between, so he could really get the word out. And I think it's a wonderful strategy.
Yeah. So for any musicians who are listening and wondering about that, that's the way to do it. And also to connect with your audience directly through email and give them things that they're not going to get through the streaming services, and to develop a relationship. And that's what I want to do anyway with my fan base and people who listen to my music. I want to connect and let them know I'm a human being and I care about them and I care about them, how the music is affecting them, and to know that their experience is real. It's coming. That's my prayer.
Yeah. What I love about, what you did is, yes, I went to your website and I wanted to purchase some of the tracks. So I went there, and it's just a minimum donation that you have there. So it's it's a beautiful way to allow the audience to kind of come in and, understand your music a little bit better and not to put too much of a burden on them. So that just goes to show, your integrity and your love and passion for all this. And just one other side note. So in the Joe Dispenza world, they do mind movies, which is basically like vision boards, but in like movie creation. So you're creating all these things. So I purchased that music of yours, and that's basically the soundtrack of my life now. So I'm going to watch it every single day.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you putting mind movies out with the music?
So just my own. Yeah. So I'm creating like basically just a video. It's like 14 minutes or so of just everything I want to create and getting in the state and the feeling of everything that I want to, to do in this life, experiences and connection and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, your music will be the set to the background of it.
Fantastic. What an honor.
Yeah.
And thank you for reminding me of that. I think I want to start doing that and putting some out to, on YouTube and sharing them.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
Well. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Matthew, thank you for being the soul that you are and for creating such beautiful heart-touching and soul-touching music. It's really an honor, and this manifestation that I created, having you on here, feels like a dream. So thank you so much.
It's truly a pleasure and an honor for me as well, Anand. Thank you.